My name's Dominic Teague. I'm the executive chef here at Woolwich Hotel in Covent Garden in London. Today we're going to do a nice dish off our menu. It's a roast Orkney scallop with heritage carrot, cumin and coriander. Well, I think it really celebrates the best of British produce. The scallops from Orkney, hand dived, absolutely fantastic. Heritage carrots from a beautiful farm up in Lancashire. The carrots, the puree is from a specific farm that we use as well. And it just really encapsulates everything about the cuisine we do here at the hotel at the moment. There's enough skill in it to keep it interesting for the students, but it's not overcomplicated or over technical that it's going to be a disaster if anyone tries to do it. Hand dive from Orkney. They come down fresh every morning into us. I've used the same company for years. I'm sure most of the chefs in London use them, and it's just an absolutely beautiful product. We probably our biggest seller on the menu. On the starters, we just we just sell loads of them, to be honest, and it's always been our biggest seller, so I can't take it off the menu. So I change the garnish throughout the seasons, but at the moment for the autumn, it's just a really nice dish that, it's a nice autumnal dish, but it's also quite light. So for the ladies that come, it's not too rich and heavy. Well, obviously, like many other chefs, or majority of us now, it's all about the sustainability and the raw product itself. So obviously, I'm old enough to remember Marco Pierre White when he had his book came out that was transformed a lot of our careers, if you like. And there's a big part in there about never using dredged scallops; they should be banned, and that's just always wrong true. You can see when you get sent them by mistake occasionally. And they're just full of sand and grit and damage, and they're just horrible. So we only use the hand dived. I always tell my guys, you need to think about the produce you're using, because some poor sod's been down in a wetsuit in a freezing cold winter to go and pick those for you off the north coast of Scotland. So let's look after them and treat them with some respect. We just pop them straight away, then store them straight away in the fridge. But we only really go them for every couple of days and they're gone. So we just keep them coming in sort of fresh every day, pretty much. There's nothing to it. We just pop them, keep them in the fridge until we need them, and then cook them to order when they're away. We take the roes off, we clean it all down. Yeah, we use the roes if we have a build up, and we use those maybe for a sauce for the set menu. So we freeze those in a batch, and then we use those when we have enough to make a sauce for the set menu, basically. Just sear it, just pan fry it really gently, really simple, nothing overcomplicated. Literally nice hot pan, nice golden brown. Cook it pretty much 80% on one side. Turn it over for a few seconds. A little bit of oil on the top, sea salt, bit of lemon juice. That's it. It's all about the scallop. I don't overcomplicate it at all, really. They need to be undercooked in the middle. It goes very tough, very leathery, if you like, if it's overcooked. So you need to cook it accurately. There's not a massive window of manoeuvrability, if you like. It needs to be quite accurate when you cook them, and there's a skill in that. And it's very easy to overlook that and just overcook them and get a nice colour, but then actually the scallop's overcooked. So it's all about that control of the heat in the pan. They need to be pretty much the last thing on the plate, because if you leave them in the pan, they will carry on cooking and overcook. So it needs to be cooked out, brushed, and then served straight away. I just think it goes really nicely with it. Get a nice earthy flavour, but also a real flavoursome carrot as well. We use them from a beautiful farm up in near Lancashire, and it's just a beautiful carrot to use, full of flavour. We cook it with a little bit of carrot juice as well, just to intensify that, and then it just marries nicely with it. And then the coriander and the cumin gives a little bit of spice, a little bit of colour, a little bit of sweetness as well. It just marries all together when you eat it. Yeah, heritage carrot. But we use there's a sandy carrot we use for the puree as well, which I'll explain when we do the dish. We're all about British produce, all about using local farms. That actually sandy carrot is from Normandy, because there's a special carrot that's grown in the sandy soil there, and has quite a unique flavour. So we use that for the puree because it's so special, and then we use the heritage carrot to roast to serve with the garnish. Yeah, we just toast some cumin seeds and we just brush that on the carrot as we glaze it, just to give it a little bit of spice and a bit of crunch as well. And we make an oil with the coriander, so it's like a coriander oil to be served with it as well. Yeah, it just gives it a little bit of crunch because the dish is quite soft, the carrot's soft, the puree, the scallop's quite soft, so we want a little bit of crunch in there. So we just crush them a little bit and then just sprinkle them over just as we glaze the carrot in the pan. Yeah, a bit of coriander crest to garnish, very simple, but it's all about the scallop itself and the carrot really. I don't like to overcomplicate things. I obviously, at a certain age where a lot of classical dishes were around when I was first starting, so that's obviously fundamental basics of what we do. We have some modern touches, some modern elements, but I'm not one for overcomplicating stuff and molecular gastronomy. I don't go too deep into that. We touch on it bits and pieces if it helps, but it's really about just keeping the produce relatively simple and just letting that sing on its own. Really, I try not to overcomplicate everything too much. We're chefs, right? We have to keep that going, and it's people in my role. I always think it's our duty as exec chefs and head chefs to keep those skills being taught and keep learning. I could make my job far easier by buying everything in, and de-skilling the whole kitchen, but it's our duty, I think, in our position to keep those skills being taught, because where would we be in the next generation if we don't? Sometimes it's a balance between actually having enough hours in the day to do it and keeping the working hours not crazily excessive like it was when I was a youngster, but we have to balance that out, and that's sometimes the biggest challenge, I think. But we have to keep the skill level throughout the brigade up and keep everybody interested. My team has been moving with me for quite a long time, and I like to think it's because we keep it interesting, we keep trying to show them things, we keep trying to teach them new things, and they see that. If it was just everything bought in ready, prepped, nothing was really done, they probably would have been long gone. So it doesn't help me in the long run either. It's important. Yeah, I think it's overlooked as well, right? I think it's important to get out and about as much as you can. I've been guilty of not doing that perhaps as much as I should have over the years, but it's definitely a thing that I would encourage. But it's also, you understand the whole process and the whole journey of a meal better by doing that. It's when we do a tasting menu, for example, downstairs, and one of the youngsters was putting something on the plate, and I said, that's way too big. He's like, cut that down a bit, and they hadn't ever actually sat and eaten a 7-course meal before. So because he's a young chap and hasn't actually done that yet, he wasn't understanding that you have to have everything in the right size portion and balanced, and sweetness and sharpness and rich and whatever, and healthy dishes all married together to make one meal. It's not just about one dish, it's about the whole meal. And I think that comes with eating out and just an experience, but it's that experience of eating out is a big part of it. I think especially when you're maybe a younger head chef, perhaps you only write the menu that you like to actually eat. But I think perhaps my own personal case, as you get more experienced, you actually learn to actually cook for the guests perhaps a bit more than perhaps when you're a younger head chef. And I think that's quite important. And I think a lot of younger head chefs perhaps aren't aware of that, or younger sous chefs or chef de parties that don't actually realise that it's not about what you want to eat, it's about what the customer wants. So, I can't stand sprouts, I never have done, but I will never not put them on the menu because I know people do like them, and it's a beautiful winter product. But to have the confidence to put something on the menu that you don't like, I think that comes with experience, perhaps. I came to London when I was 19, when the Lanesborough Hotel just opened up. Literally, I was there. My trial shift was the day it officially opened. Margaret Thatcher was coming for a gala dinner. Did 7 years there and worked my way up through the ranks. I've done 7 years at Escargot when Marco owned it. I was on the stoves with Jeff Galvin and a good friend of mine, Phil Thompson, and we were doing probably the most consistent technical food I probably cooked was at that time for those 6-7 years I was there. I was at the Aurora restaurant over in the city for 4.5 years, and I was there when it rebranded to the Andaz Hotel. And more recently, before this job, I was at Sandy Lane in Barbados for 2.5 years as executive sous with the whole resort. So I've always tried to I think it's important actually as you're coming through the ranks to try and not pigeonhole yourself on one type of cuisine. I think I was quite lucky when I was younger that I realised the need to not just do one particular type of cuisine, if you like. So I'd had the hotel experience with Bulgaria, and that accompanies everything from the bar to running a banquet or a wedding to a busy brasserie. But then it was important I spent time with Jeff Galvin just cooking 30 covers a night in the Picasso room at L'escargot. And then you sort of moved to Barbados, where it was a multi-resort operation and there was 5, 6, 7 operations all going at once. I think you need to have that overall experience as you go through your career. I think is important because you never know where you're going to end up or what you're going to end up doing or being in charge of when you're older. It's probably nothing to what probably everybody says. It's just you got to work hard, you got to get your head down, you got to listen, take everything in you can, grab every opportunity that you can. And I would also say try and almost look at a stage in the future, looking back in your career and think where do you want to be, and where you want to be there's a particular journey for that. So if you have no intention of ever being a fine dining chef, if you like, in the future, okay, it's good to get that experience, but if you see yourself in the future running a gastropub, then you should focus on having some experience at a young age in a gastropub. I think it's quite relevant to where you want to be in the future. And if you don't know, which most people probably don't, have a look at all different aspects. You know, go to a bit of time in a 2-star if you can, or a 1-star. Go to a gastropub. Go and work in a banqueting conference centre for a year to get that under your belt, because you never know in the future what you're going to end up doing. And too many chefs, I think, as they get through the higher up the ladder, they get thrown into something that they've just never done before, and then they could fall short or have more stress than they need because they've got nothing to fall back on. The biggest challenge for me is when you go from sous chef to head chef, and then all of a sudden you're in charge of finances that you've had no training with. And it's really, I think we're getting better at it as an industry, but I think there's still a lot more to come where people should be taught as they're coming through, right from an early age, colleges, commies, all the way through, need to be educated about the finance side of things, because at some point you're going to be in charge and it's impossible to then be successful at that if you've had no training. You can learn on the job at the last minute as you do it, but that's not going to set you up for success. So I always encourage my guys, even right from the younger ones, we talk about food costs, portions, how much it's costing a plate, how much percentages we have, labour costs, all these things that was never really taught about back in the day when I was just running around a kitchen just trying to keep your head above water. You have years of stress and extra headaches because you haven't got that behind you. So I think there's a definite case of our industry in actually educating our students, commis chefs, all the way through the ranks at an earlier stage than just waiting to suddenly get to head chef or executive sous chef and then now you're in charge of the payroll or labour cost or whatever, and you've got no experience. It's no other industry works like that, I don't think. Well, it's one of those ones where we lose a bit of money on it because it is expensive. The scallops cost a fortune. I have my understanding of what our guests are willing to pay. We're not the Park Lane end of town, where they could probably charge a lot more. So I have to balance that. So I understand that I might perhaps lose a little bit on this dish if we're looking purely from a GP point of view, but I'll get it back on somewhere else. So I'd rather have 10 guests ordering it and love it and thinking what a great bargain than 1 or 2 ordering it a night at a higher cost that makes my cost for that particular dish come in line. I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm very lucky. I've control of what I do. I don't have a corporate finance team on my back all the time. We're an independent hotel. I work closely with the finance team. They trust me, and as long as everything comes in line, then I'm okay. So I'm very much of the fact you might lose a bit on that one, but you can gain it somewhere else. If you're charging good money for a vegetarian starter, you're making more money back than you would do if losing a couple of pound on the scallop dish. So I think we set it for £14, which is actually probably, if I was looking purely at a costing model, it's not enough. But I think £14 for a starter, where we are, is about right.